Okay, in this lecture we're going to talk about keyboard shortcuts. And keyboard shortcuts are kind of a pain in the butt, but they're really important if you want to work more efficiently and quickly in Photoshop. So we're just going to do a little introduction to keyboard shortcuts, and then we're going to do a little keyboard practice. And you're going to see a little lecture like this in every section where we're just going to practice some keyboard shortcuts. And a lot of times you'll be able to just go to Photoshop and listen to my voice and practice along. And I really want you to do that because it will improve your workflow in Photoshop immensely. But first, let's talk a little bit about Mac versus PC keyboards. This is something that causes people a lot of confusion, but once I break it down for you, you'll see that it's really not that complicated. And no matter what I tell you, you'll be able to, if you have a PC or a Mac, you'll be able to understand what I'm saying after this lecture. I teach on a PC, so most of the keyboard shortcuts I'm going to tell you will be the PC version. But again, once I show you this, you'll know how to do the same thing on a Mac without even thinking about it, okay? So, the main keys that you're going to be using for keyboard shortcuts are going to be the Alt key, and I'll explain these in Mac in just a second, the Control key, and the Shift key. You'll use these in various combinations and with other keys to do probably 80% of the things you can do with the mouse when it comes to opening tools and saving and things like that, okay? So the Alt key, the Control key, and the Shift key. And an example that you're probably already familiar with if you've used any other program like Microsoft Word or anything like that is Control Z. That's the undo shortcut, right? Control and Z. So let's look at the Mac equivalent of it. And again, if you're a Mac user, you probably know this, but instead of hitting Control Z to undo on a Mac, you hit Command Z. Command Z, okay? And you just press the buttons down at the same time, and that will undo the most recent action that you've done. So the Command key on a Mac is essentially the same as the Control key on a PC. If I tell you to hit Control Z, you're just going to automatically think, I'm on a Mac, so I'm going to hit Command Z. Okay, so that's the first tip. Control on a PC equals Command on a Mac. The second one is Alt. Alt on a PC is the same as Option on a Mac. Okay, Alt on a PC, Option on a Mac. So if I tell you to hold down the Alt key and click your mouse, if you're on a Mac, you'll hold down the Option key and click your mouse. Okay, so that's the second tip for comparing the two keyboards. And then, fortunately, the Shift key is going to work the same on both. Okay, so if you need to watch that again or write it down even, if you think you'll struggle to remember that, that's basically the most important tip I'll give you for differentiating between a Mac keyboard and a PC keyboard. Okay, so I could talk about that all day, but what we really need to do is just start practicing. So I'm going to show you the very first keyboard shortcut. And this is an easy one. Right now I'm in full screen in Photoshop. These are two images. But if I hit the F key, I'll toggle between various versions of full screen and partial screen. So I just hit F and you'll see that the menu bars came back and the tabs. I'll hit F again, just the menu bars. Hit F again, it's full screen. And I can just cycle through. See, there's full screen, the tools, partial tools, full screen again. So let's go back to this. And I've also hidden some of my additional tools. I'm going to hit the Tab key. And I'm going to bring all the tools back and the palettes, and we'll go into all this soon. But just remember, if I'm in Photoshop and I hit F, there are three different settings to toggle between full screen and having all your tools. And if you hit Tab, you'll hide your tools. If you hit Tab again, the tools come back. Okay? Tab, Tab. Okay, so make sure you go into Photoshop and actually practice these things. Practice hitting F, 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 Tab, 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 Tab. Okay, so you get familiar with it. Now let me just show you a couple more keyboard shortcuts that you can practice, and then I'll get into showing you what all these tools are and how to use them. Okay, so one of the most important keyboard shortcuts that you'll need when you're very first starting out is the keyboard shortcut for opening an image, and it is Control on a PC or Command on a Mac, right? Control on a PC, Command on a Mac, and then the letter O. Okay, so I'm on a PC, so I'm going to hit Control O, and this is going to open up the Open dialog box, and from here I can easily open an image. And we're going to talk more about this in subsequent lectures about opening and saving images, but now you've got a good quick keyboard shortcut for it, Control O. Okay, now let's say I've done some edits to this and I want to save it. If I want to save the changes to my original photo, I just hit Control and S. Okay, so back over here to our keyboards, Control or Command on a Mac and the key S. Control S. That will save it. If I want to save it as an entirely new document so that I don't do any damage to my old document, I can hit Control Alt S. Control Alt S. On a Mac, it'll be Command Option, because Option is the same as Alt. Command Option S. Okay? So let's go back to this one and I'll do it. Control Alt S. It's going to bring up the Save As dialog box and allow me to rename this and then save it. Okay, so those are your quick keyboard shortcuts for the day. Let's do a quick review, and then I really want you to practice them. We'll go back to our keyboards again, and what I recommend is doing them in this order. First, go Command O and open an image. It can be any image, it doesn't matter. Do Command O and open an image, or on a PC you're going to say Control O, open an image, and then save it as something else by saying Control Alt S. Control Alt S. And on a Mac, Command Option S. Okay? And remember, Alt on a PC is the same as Option on a Mac. Control on the PC is the same as Command on a Mac. Okay, practice those a little bit until you can just kind of do it without thinking about it, and I'll see you in the next lecture.